The world begins in silence, a velvet stillness that drapes across the architecture of civilization just before the sun breaches the horizon. In this delicate, blue-gray interlude, there exists a profound paradox. The most dangerous event in the human experience happens millions of times daily, yet it makes not a single ripple in the headlines. It is not an earthquake, nor a falling market, nor the collapse of a dynasty. It is the simple, rhythmic, and devastating act of waking up. Imagine, if you will, the millions of homes silhouetted against the morning haze. Behind those closed doors, the waking sleep is in full effect. The atmosphere is thick with the residue of dreams and the looming, uninvited pressures of the world. A device, a mechanical shackle of our own invention, screams its metallic defiance into the quiet, shocking the nervous system into a state of primitive emergency. In that split second, the sovereignty of the individual is surrendered. Before a single conscious thought is formed, the reactive machine begins its toil. There is a tragedy unfolding here, quiet and absolute. It is the erosion of potential, the slow, agonizing dissolution of the self. Look closely. The eyes open, but the spirit remains in a state of suspended animation. Instead of rising to claim the day, these souls are consumed by it. They reach, they scramble, they react. They are not captains of their own destiny. They are merely cargo being tossed about in the hold of a ship that has no rudder. They have traded the fire of their own purpose for the tepid comfort of external instruction. The day has not begun for them. It has merely happened to them. And in this moment of surrender, the foundation of a lifetime of mediocrity is laid, stone by cold, heavy stone. Why does the vast majority of humanity succumb to this morning surrender with such clockwork precision? To understand this, one must deconstruct the psychological machinery of the drifter. The drifter is not a failure of character. He is a failure of architecture. His mind, upon awakening, is in a state of high suggestibility. It is a garden freshly tilled by the REM cycles of the night, raw and ready for planting. But the drifter, lacking a predefined intention, leaves the garden gate wide open. He allows the hypnotic rhythm of the environment, the news, the notifications, the anxieties of his employer to blow in like weeds, choking the potential that was meant to bloom. Why does he hit the snooze button? It is a profound psychological betrayal. The alarm represents a promise made to the self the night before. When the bell rings, the snooze button becomes an act of negotiation with one's own integrity. By pressing it, the drifter signals to his subconscious that his comfort is superior to his purpose. He is training his brain to view difficult commitments as optional. He is cementing the habit of retreat before the world even begins. How does this lead to systemic failure? The brain is a pattern recognition machine. When the first interaction of the day is a reaction, the brain enters a state of learned helplessness. It observes that the external world, the traffic, the inbox, the boss is the dominant force. The brain then recalibrates to survive the day rather than conquer it. It assumes a defensive posture. Over days, months, and years, this becomes the primary operating system. The drifter believes he is busy, but he is merely a passenger on a ship with no steering mechanism, mistaking the movement of the waves for his own progress. He is drifting toward the rocks of dissatisfaction, not because he lacks power, but because he has misplaced the key to the engine room. The tragedy is that the capacity for greatness is not a rare mutation, it is a universal seed. But a seed left in the dark, unwatered by intent, will wither. The drifter's error is the belief that life is something that happens to him, rather than something he creates from the raw, silent material of the dawn. Consider the story of Elias, a man who lived his life in the quiet desperation of the almost. Elias possessed a mind as sharp as a sculptor's chisel, and his hands were capable of crafting empires. For decades, he worked in a high-rise office, looking out at the city as if it were a vast chessboard, yet he never once moved a piece of his own. Elias lived by the rhythm of the siren. Every morning, the alarm would sound, and Elias would hit the button. He would reach for the glowing screen of his phone, letting the tragedy of the world flood his nervous system. He would read about economic downturns, political scandals, and the failures of others, filling his mind with the vibration of struggle before he had even stood up. By the time he walked into his office, he was already tired, not from labor, but from the weight of 1,000 small, external burdens he had allowed to settle upon his shoulders. One year, feeling the encroaching shadow of age and the heavy regret of an unlived life, Elias made a silent pact with the silence. He stopped reaching for the screen. He began to rise the moment his eyes opened, treating that first hour as a sacred, impenetrable cathedral. He stopped reacting to the sirens of the world and began, in the quiet, to visualize his own day as a finished, successful work of art. He noticed something curious. When he began to command his morning, the chaos of his office didn't disappear, but it changed its nature. It stopped being an adversary and became a resource, because he entered the day with a definite chief aim. The distractions that once paralyzed him now looked like pebbles on the path easy to step over. Elias didn't change his job, but he changed his world. He had stopped drifting. He had found the rudder. The winds of chance, which had once blown him toward the rocks, now filled the sails of his newfound purpose. Elias realized that the tragedy was never his circumstances. The tragedy was that he had been asleep while his life was happening. The transition from drifter to master is not a leap. It is a deliberate, daily reclamation. You are currently standing at the threshold of your own life. You have been told that you are a product of your environment, but today, you will begin to prove that you are the author of it. Your task for this day is simple, yet it requires the iron of true intent. Tomorrow morning, you will not negotiate with your alarm. When it sounds, your feet will hit the floor with the force of an oath. You will not reach for your phone. You will not check the news, the messages, or the temperature of the world's panic. You will seal the doors to your mind. You will stand in your room and declare, in the silence, that you are the architect of the next 12 hours. But wait, you have reclaimed the dawn, and you have silenced the noise. You are standing in the stillness, ready to build. But even the best architect must know how to face the glass. You have the desire, but do you have the eyes to see what the mirror actually reflects? In our next chapter, we descend into the laboratory of the soul, where the truth of your morning will be revealed, and you will learn how to turn that reflection into your greatest ally. The mirror is waiting. Are you ready to see who you are truly becoming? Imagine, if you will, an ancient chamber, vast and windowless, lit only by the flickering luminescence of a single, guttering torch. In the center of this room stands a mirror, not a common-looking glass of silvered backing and glass, but a pool of perfectly still, obsidian water. It is cold, deep, and utterly unclouded. This is the mirror of the morning. It does not reflect what you wish to be. It does not offer the flattery of a gilded portrait or the distorted perspective of a hall of mirrors. It reflects the raw, unvarnished state of your soul at the exact moment consciousness returns to the physical vessel. Every morning, at the breaking of the dawn, you are forced to stand before this pool. You look down, and for a fleeting, sacred second, the ripple of your intent, or your lack thereof, is captured in the surface. If you see chaos, a frantic scramble to find your footing, the muddy sediment of yesterday's failures, or the hollow anxiety of a man who has forgotten his name, you are witnessing your future. It is not a prophecy delivered by a mystic. It is a calculation performed by the laws of correspondence. As the morning goes, so goes the day. As the days go, so goes the life. The mirror of the morning is merciless, for it is the only judge that cannot be bribed, fooled, or delayed. To look into it is to confront the terrifying, beautiful truth of your own discipline, or the lack of it laid bare before the universe. Why is the morning an unerring predictor of one's destiny? To answer this, we must delve into the mechanism of the human consciousness as it navigates the transition from the subconscious realm of sleep to the waking world. The philosophy of soft wax. In the moments just after waking, the human mind exists in a state of neurobiological fluidity. The protective barriers of the ego are thin. The rigid, defensive patterns of the day have not yet calcified. Metaphorically, your mind is a tablet of soft wax. You have just emerged from the depths of the dream world, where logic is suspended and the subconscious reigns. As your conscious faculties sharpen, you are reaching for the stylus to write upon that wax. If you grasp the stylus with a hand trembling from procrastination, or if you allow the world to seize the stylus from you, the impression that remains is one of weakness. The law of cosmic habit force. How does a singular, fleeting morning act translate into a lifetime of results? Here, we encounter the immutable law of cosmic habit force. This law suggests that the universe possesses a natural tendency to crystallize repetition into permanence. Once a behavior is repeated, the universe and your own neurology begins to harden that path. It is the same force that carves canyons through solid stone over millennia of flowing water. When you hit the snooze button, you are not merely stealing 5 minutes of sleep. You are carving a channel for procrastination to flow into the rest of your life. You are training the neural pathways of your brain to associate the start of the day with avoidance of duty. Why does this happen? Because the brain seeks the path of least resistance. How does it solidify? By repeating the choice of comfort over purpose, you signal to your own psyche that your word, the promise you made to yourself the night before, is subordinate to your immediate physical sensation. The drifter, therefore, is not a man who has failed by accident. He is a man who has systematically, through the repetition of his mornings, instructed his subconscious to value inertia above expansion. He looks into the mirror and sees a victim because he has spent years programming himself to be one. He has used the soft wax of his morning to carve the image of a servant, and then wonders why he finds himself in chains. The master, conversely, understands that the mirror is not a reflection of what he is, but a blueprint of what he is becoming. He uses the morning to carve the image of the architect, the conqueror, the visionary. He knows that if he can control the impression made upon the wax at dawn, the rest of the day and the rest of his life is merely the fulfillment of that initial, intentional command. In the annals of a forgotten kingdom, there lived two royal clockmakers, Silas and Julian. They were brothers, both masters of the intricate art of gears, springs, and precision. They were tasked by the king to construct a timepiece that would govern the prosperity of the realm, a clock that would never lose a second. For it was said that the kingdom's fortune relied entirely on the accuracy of its rhythm. Silas, the elder, approached his craft with the discipline of a mountain. Every morning, before the city gates creaked open, he would walk to his workbench. He did not eat. He did not speak. He would sit before his masterpiece. He would spend the first hour of the day in absolute silence, inspecting the mainspring, tightening the tension, and ensuring that his hands were steady. He viewed the morning as the master pivot of the entire machine. If the pivot was slightly off, the gears would bind by midday. Silas knew that the metal of the clock was sensitive to the temperature of the room and the vibration of the world, just as his mind was sensitive to the chaos of the marketplace. By the time the sun climbed high, his clock was so precise that even the shadows seemed to bow to its time. Julian, the younger brother, was a man of modern convenience. He believed the clock was merely a tool, and that he, the creator, could work whenever inspiration struck. He would wake to the blare of music, rush to his breakfast, and consume the gossip of the town as he hurried to his shop. He would approach his workbench with a scattered mind, his hands still trembling from the rush of the morning streets. He spent his early hours fighting the gears, trying to force them into alignment. His clock, though beautiful in its craftsmanship, was forever erratic. It would run fast, then slow, then stop entirely. The king eventually declared Julian's clocks to be failures, for they could not be relied upon to govern the affairs of the state. The lesson remained in the scrolls for centuries. Silas's clock succeeded not because he was a better artisan than Julian, but because Silas understood that the machine of the clock could only be as accurate as the artisan who set the tempo at dawn. He had mastered the mirror of the morning, ensuring that the first movement of the day was one of perfect, intentional alignment. You have seen the mirror. You have felt the weight of the soft wax, and you have witnessed the divergence of paths between the man who forces the day and the man who aligns with it. Now, You must choose what you will carve into the foundation of your own life. This is your practical application. Tomorrow, you will treat the first hour as a non-negotiable ritual of orientation. Before you engage with the digital noise, before you ingest the fears of the collective, you will stand before your own mirror. You will take a physical inventory of your internal state. Ask yourself, does this reflection look like the man or woman I am building? If the answer is no, do not reach for a cup of coffee to mask it. Reach for your will. Use the breathing techniques of the ancients, the physical movement of the warriors, and the spoken declarations of the kings. If you see anxiety, replace it with the deliberate posture of calm. If you see confusion, replace it with the written word of your objective. You are not waiting for the world to make you. You are making yourself. But what of the flesh? You have oriented your mind, and you have looked into the mirror. But the physical vessel, the machinery of your action, remains a dormant, heavy weight of sleep. A powerful mind trapped in a sluggish body is a tragedy of a different sort. We must now move from the realm of the psyche into the domain of the physical, where we will learn to ignite the furnace of your own biology. The body is the engine. Are you ready to learn the secret of the spark that will drive it through the fires of the day? The transition awaits in the next chapter. Consider the lion that slumbers on the scorched plains of the savannah. To the casual observer, it is a creature of repose, a golden statue of absolute stillness. Yet, beneath that tawny hide, the muscles are coiled like springs made of tempered steel, ready to detonate into kinetic fury at a single, imperceptible sound. There is a magnificent paradox in this state. The most potent predator on earth does not spend his morning preparing to hunt. He is always the hunt. He does not wake up and ask if he has the motivation to pursue. He wakes up and the pursuit is the only reality he knows. Now contrast this with the modern inhabitant of the civilized world. When the dawn breaks, the human being wakes not as a predator of his own destiny, but as a creature caught in a web of his own making. He wakes with a heavy sigh, a physiological resistance to the very life he claims to want. He waits for the coffee to stimulate his sluggish nervous system. He waits for the news to tell him how to feel, and he waits for the external pressures of the marketplace to provide the adrenaline necessary to move his limbs. There is a tragedy in this waiting. It is a surrender of the throne. The moment you wake and permit yourself to linger in the soft, seductive arms of comfort, you have already lost the day. You have signaled to the universe that you are not a participant in your own creation, but a victim of the gravity of inertia. The rebellion begins in the instant you reject that gravity. It is a violent, beautiful, and necessary act of defiance against the lower self, the primitive shadow that whispers, "Just 5 more minutes," while your soul screams for the sunrise. What is this internal war? And why does the mortal mind fight so viciously against the expansion of the higher self? To understand this, we must deconstruct the architecture of our own survival. The human brain was not designed by nature for greatness. It was designed for survival. It is an organ of conservation, programmed to store energy, avoid pain, and minimize caloric expenditure. When you wake up, your primitive brain, the amygdala and the hypothalamus, is screaming at you to stay still, to be safe, to preserve the fire of your vitality. It perceives effort as a threat to your biological stability. Why does the mortal mind negotiate with your ambition? The mortal mind operates on the principle of the path of least resistance. It views growth as an unnecessary expenditure of energy. When you feel that morning lethargy, that heavy pull of the bed sheets, you are not experiencing laziness. You are experiencing a biological imperative to remain static. The why is simple. Evolution did not prioritize your dreams. It prioritized your respiration. How do we flip the polarity of this existence? We must use the recursive method of command. We ask, if the brain seeks comfort, how do I force it into excellence? The answer is, by engaging in a preemptive strike. We must perform a task that creates resistance before the world demands it of us. When you voluntarily engage in an act of discomfort, a freezing shower, a punishing set of movements, a moment of intense focus, you are performing a psychological coup d'etat. You are taking the primitive brain, which expects the day to unfold upon its terms, and you are shattering that expectation. You are proving to your nervous system that you are not a biological slave to comfort. This is not about the act itself, it is about the signal. By choosing the hard thing, you are overriding the survival instinct and replacing it with the thriving instinct. You are, in effect, pruning the branches of the lower self so the higher self may take its rightful place in the sun. If you do not conquer the body at the dawn, the body will conquer the mind by the afternoon. In the frozen expanse of the northern reaches, there lived a legendary tracker named Kalen. It was said that Kalen could find a path through a blizzard when the wind was so fierce it would strip the bark from the trees. Young apprentices would flock to his cabin, hoping to learn the secret of his uncanny focus and his ability to remain unmoved by the biting frost. One morning, an apprentice arrived, shivering, and asked Kalen, "Master, how do you keep your mind from fracturing when the wind screams and the cold seeks to paralyze your spirit?" Kalen didn't answer. He simply walked to the center of the cabin, where a basin of water was frozen solid in the night air. He took a heavy iron poker, shattered the ice, and then walked out into the sub-zero dawn in nothing but his linen tunic. He stood there for 10 minutes, his chest heaving, his skin flushing with the violence of the cold, while the apprentice watched in horror. When Kalen returned, he was calm, his eyes burning with a clarity that defied the blizzard raging outside. "The cold is a dragon," Kalen whispered, his breath steaming in the low light. "If you wait for the blizzard to bite you, you will panic, you will run, you will stumble, and you will die. But if you walk out to meet the dragon on your own terms, you show him that you are the master of the fire within." The cold did not change. The wind did not stop. But I changed. I became the furnace. When you engage with the difficulty first, you cease to be a victim of the environment. You become the force that defines it. Kalen understood that the hard thing was a rite of passage. He did not master the wilderness by avoiding the ice. He mastered it by shattering the ice every single morning. He forced his body to adapt. And in doing so, he forged a will that was harder than the steel of his blade. The lesson is etched in the ice of Kalen's story. You cannot wait to feel like a master. You must act like one until the feeling follows the action. The rebellion of the will is the most sacred private act of your entire existence. Your mission for today: do not look for an easy routine. Look for the hard thing. It might be the cold shock of a shower that demands you breathe against the instinct to gasp. It might be 20 minutes of focused, agonizing labor on the project that scares you most. It might be the discipline of moving your body until your muscles burn and your lungs demand rest. You must find the thing that makes your mortal mind scream no, and you must do it with a smile, for in that scream you find the sound of your own potential being unlocked. But even a warrior, after the battle, must know how to speak to the heavens. You have the iron will, but do you have the tongue of a king? You have mastered the body, but the subconscious remains a vast, uncharted forest that needs a map. In our next chapter, we will learn the alchemy of the word, how to use the very sounds you produce to rewrite the code of your destiny. The sword is forged. Now we must learn the language of the spell. The transformation continues. Consider the silence of a library vault, or the hushed anticipation of a cathedral before the first note of the organ resonates against the vaulted stone. There is a weight to the air, a potentiality that demands recognition. Now, imagine a human being standing in the center of their own life, the dawn light filtering through the curtains like gold dust. Before them lies the blank page of the coming day. They speak, and the sound of their own voice, however soft, sends a ripple through the unseen ether. Herein lies the profound and terrifying paradox of our existence. We are the only creatures on this earth who create our own reality through the vibration of our vocal cords. Yet, most men and women treat this power as mere background noise. They wake up and, like a sculptor striking their own masterpiece with a blunt hammer, they utter words of limitation. "I am so tired," they sigh. "This will be a difficult day," they mutter. They are casting spells of mediocrity, weaving the invisible fabric of their failure before they have even tasted the morning air. They are not merely observing their reality, they are decreeing it. They are the architects of their own imprisonment, using the most powerful tool in the universe, the word, to bolt the doors of their own cage. What is the true nature of autosuggestion? And why is it the definitive master key to the subconscious? To answer this, we must strip away the mysticism and look at the hard, psychological machinery at work. Why does the voice override the intellect? The human mind is divided into two distinct realms: the conscious, which operates via logic, and the subconscious, which operates via impression and emotion. The conscious mind is a gatekeeper, skeptical and analytical. But the subconscious is a faithful servant. It does not judge, it does not argue. It takes every command delivered with intensity and turns it into a physical reality. When you speak aloud, you are bypassing the gatekeeper. You are sending a direct, non-negotiable instruction to the factory of your nervous system. How does the vibration of sound restructure your biology? The recursive truth of language is that we hear ourselves before we hear anyone else. When you speak an affirmation, you are engaging in a triple lock system. You think the thought, you speak the vibration, and you hear the command. This loop is a powerful biofeedback mechanism. If you say, "I am a force of nature," your brain begins to scan for evidence of that state. If you say, "I am struggling," your brain, ever the servant, finds the fatigue in your limbs and the doubt in your heart and validates your claim. The why of your failure is often found in the vocabulary of your morning. You have spent years using your tongue to build walls of doubt. You have utilized the alchemy of the word to transmute your gold into lead. To reverse this, you must understand that autosuggestion is not a lie you tell yourself. It is a prescriptive mandate for the person you are choosing to become. You are not reporting on the past. You are writing the script for the future. By speaking with conviction, you are effectively rewiring the synaptic pathways. You are forcing the subconscious to align its massive, unseen power with the conscious target you have set. This is not magic. It is the physics of consciousness. In the imperial gardens of an ancient, walled city, there served a gardener named Kalo. The city was gripped by a long, merciless drought. The soil was cracked and gray, the leaves were brittle, and the common people walked with their heads bowed, whispering of starvation and the inevitable end of their prosperity. Every day, the laborers would come to the garden and moan, "The sun is too harsh, and the water is gone, and the earth is dead." Kalo, however, walked the rows of his garden differently. He carried a vessel of clear spring water, but he did not only pour it upon the roots. As he walked, he spoke. He would lean down to a withered sapling and whisper, "You are drinking deep. You are stretching toward the sky. You are the future of this valley." He would look at the parched earth and declare, "You are preparing for the harvest." He was mocked by the other gardeners, who called him a madman for speaking to dead wood. But Kalo understood that the sapling could not understand his words, but his own subconscious could. He was holding himself to a vibration of abundance while everyone else was vibrating in the frequency of lack. He continued his work, ignoring the negative spells cast by his peers. He stood in the center of the garden every morning and, looking into the eye of the burning sun, he spoke the truth of the rain. Within a month, while the other gardeners had abandoned their plots to the heat, Kalo's garden did not merely survive, it flourished. The roots of his trees had burrowed deep into the cool, unseen aquifers of the earth. He had maintained the vibration of the harvest long before the clouds ever gathered. When the rains finally returned, they found a garden already prepared to receive them. Kalo did not wait for the change to happen. He spoke the change into existence, and the world had no choice but to align with his unwavering decree. You have witnessed the alchemy of the word. You have seen how the world and your own internal terrain is molded by the vibration of your belief. The time for passive observation is over. It is time for you to become the decree. Your mission for today. You will utilize the mirror technique. Find a quiet moment in your morning, stand before your reflection, and look into your own eyes. You will speak your definite chief aim aloud. You will not mumble. You will not speak with the uncertainty of a hope. You will speak with the authority of a ruler. I am the architect of my destiny. I am the power that moves mountains. I am a builder of value. You will do this until you feel the vibration in your chest, until the cold, dry words catch fire with emotion. This is how you shatter the old labels and replace them with the armor of your new identity. If you are ready to wield the power of your tongue, to cut through the fog of your current circumstances, give this mission a like and subscribe. By clicking that button, you are adding your voice to a movement of masters who have decided that their words will no longer be echoes of the world's fear, but the thunder of their own victory. But you have prepared the mind, you have ignited the will, and you have spoken the truth. You are now standing on the threshold of a new existence, but there is one final, silent power that connects the human spirit to the vast, unseen mainframe of the universe. We have looked at the action, but what of the listening? How do you quiet the roar of the day to hear the whisper of the divine? Our next chapter, The Sacred Council, will teach you how to unlock the hidden genius that resides in the silence. The journey into the deep quiet begins now. Picture the dawn in a sprawling metropolis. The city is a gargantuan clockwork of steel and ambition, yet in the quiet moments before the rush, millions of human vessels lie still in the horizontal position of recovery. To the casual observer, they are merely resting, preparing to face the tasks ahead. But consider the paradox. The modern individual treats their body as an afterthought, a mere carriage for the intellect, a clumsy taxi designed to ferry the brain from one screen to another. They rise, clutching a vessel of caffeine to jolt their heart into a rhythm of artificial alertness, while the rest of their biological machinery remains stalled in the static, leaden inertia of the night. It is a tragedy of misplaced priorities. Imagine an elite racing stable where the groom allows the thoroughbreds to languish in their stalls for 18 hours a day, their muscles turning to slack, their hearts growing weak and unaccustomed to the strain of the track. Then, when the time comes to race, he wonders why the beast stumbles. So it is with the human frame. The average person walks through the gates of the day in a state of biological stagnation, blood pooled in the torso, oxygen-starved neurons firing in a hazy, sluggish arc, and a spirit muted by the lack of kinetic fire. They are trying to orchestrate a symphony of high-level thought within a frame that has forgotten how to be alive. The body is not a container, it is a generator. And when that generator remains cold, the light of one's potential can never burn bright enough to illuminate the path to greatness. Why does the modern mind cling to the dangerous myth that the body and the brain are separate entities? To answer this, we must deconstruct the physiology of high performance through the lens of recursive inquiry. Why does physical lethargy dictate mental mediocrity? The brain is not a detached observer of the body. It is a biological feedback loop. Every posture you hold, every breath you take, and every movement you execute is a signal sent to the command center of the central nervous system. When you move with hesitation, slumping over a desk, breathing in shallow, jagged gasps, the brain interprets this data as a state of defeat or danger. It responds by releasing cortisol, the hormone of stress and withdrawal. How does the principle of transmutation unlock our hidden genius? Transmutation is the alchemical process of taking the raw, primal energy of the physical body and refining it into the high-frequency electricity of intellectual and creative endurance. The body is the furnace. If you do not stoke the fire of your metabolism the moment you rise, you are essentially trying to power a kingdom with a dying candle. Why must we move with intensity? Because intensity acts as a catalyst. When you subject your body to a sudden, controlled spike in physical demand, be it through explosive movement, deep oxygenation, or the shock of temperature, you are forcing a transition from the parasympathetic state, the state of rest, to the sympathetic state, the state of action. How do we sustain this? Through the feedback of embodied cognition. When you force your heart rate to climb, your brain must provide the focus to match that intensity. You are teaching your physiology that you are the architect of your own energy state. You are not waiting for motivation to strike. You are manufacturing the biological conditions for greatness. By moving like a warrior, you program your mind to think like one. The energy is not created by the movement. The movement unlocks the infinite reservoir that was already dormant within the vessel. To neglect the body is to bankrupt the mind, for the mind cannot rise higher than the foundation upon which it stands. In the mountains of the Far East, there was a temple known to few, where the monks practiced the way of the moving stillness. It was said that these monks could endure the harshest winters without fire, and that their minds were as clear as a polished mirror, capable of solving the most labyrinthine riddles of the soul. A young scholar once traveled to this temple, hoping to learn the secret of their enlightenment. He expected to find the monks sitting in eternal, silent meditation, motionless as statues. Instead, when he arrived, he found the courtyard filled with the sound of rhythmic breathing and the sharp, powerful movements of men in the prime of their vitality. They were sprinting, lifting, and striking the air with an intensity that made the scholar flinch. He watched them for days, baffled. "How can you achieve spiritual purity?" he finally asked the abbot, "when you spend your mornings in such violent, exhausting labor?" The abbot gestured to the scholar's own frame, slumped, pale, and weary from his travels. "You come to us with a mind that wants to touch the stars, but you carry it in a vessel that has forgotten how to breathe," the abbot said. "You treat the body as a burden to be ignored, so your mind has grown heavy and dim, like a lamp clogged with soot. We do not labor to tire the body, we labor to ignite the engine. If we do not sweat at dawn, the fire within us goes cold, and the darkness of the world creeps into our thoughts. We move so that the light may stay bright. A vessel that does not move is a vessel that does not contain life. It only contains stagnant water. Be the fire, and the mind will never know shadow." The scholar spent the next year learning to move, and he discovered that as his body grew capable, his mind became capable of truths he had previously thought were impossible to grasp. He realized that the body was not the enemy of the spirit. It was the vehicle, the fuel, and the furnace. You have been given the key to the furnace. The theory of the mind is useless if the vessel is not prepared to sustain the weight of your ambitions. It is time to stop acting as a passenger in your own skin and start acting as the pilot of your own biological machine. Your mission for today: you are to engage in a 10-minute protocol of radical activation the moment you rise. It does not matter if you have a gym, it matters only that you have a pulse and a floor. You will move with such intensity that your heart reaches the ceiling of its capacity. You will breathe as if you are reclaiming the very air you were denied. You will hold your posture with the rigid dignity of a statue and the explosive speed of a panther. Do not check your phone. Do not check your bank account. Check your will. If your lungs are burning, that is not pain. That is the sound of your potential expanding. If your muscles are screaming, that is not fatigue. That is the sound of your weakness leaving your body. But you have awakened the vessel, and you have fortified the mind. You have the iron will and the physical fire. Yet, even the greatest engine, when running at full power, needs a steady hand at the wheel to navigate the path ahead. You have the energy, but do you have the silence? You have the movement, but do you have the revelation? In the next chapter, we descend into the profound, forbidden realm of the sacred council. We will show you how to harness this immense, newly ignited energy and channel it into the one singular point of genius that will define your life's work. The fire is burning. Now, we must learn to hear the whisper of the divine in the center of the storm. The council awaits. The world is a cacophony of fractured signals, a relentless grinding symphony of notifications, headlines, and the hollow chatter of a billion voices competing for the fleeting currency of your attention. In the modern age, we are tethered to the infinite. We are never truly alone, and consequently, we are never truly ourselves. Imagine, for a moment, the atmosphere of a great, ancient library. Here, dust motes dance in shafts of golden light, and the silence is not merely an absence of sound, but a heavy, pulsating presence, a physical weight that demands respect. Now, contrast this with the typical morning of the common man, the frantic blue light of the smartphone, the jarring alert of a missed email, the background hum of the news, and the chaotic intrusion of other people's agendas before the coffee has even cooled. There is a paradoxical tragedy here. We live in an era of unprecedented connection, yet we are suffering from a profound famine of solitude. We have collectively forgotten how to sit with the I am. We treat silence as an enemy, a terrifying void that must be filled with noise to stave off the crushing weight of our own unexamined thoughts. And yet, it is precisely in this void, in this guarded sanctuary of silence, that the architecture of genius is drafted. The observation is clear. The masses are loud because they are empty, but the masters are quiet because they are full. To step into the silence is to step into the throne room of the universe. It is the most radical, dangerous, and transformative act an individual can perform in a world built on distraction. Why has silence become the most neglected and feared discipline in the civilized world? To dissect this, we must apply the recursive method to the mechanics of the human psyche. Why does the modern ego reject the silence? The ego thrives on movement and external validation. It defines itself by its relationship to the other. The client, the colleague, the machine. In the silence, the ego dies because it has no mirror. Without the noise of the world to provide a narrative, the individual is forced to confront the naked, unadorned truth of their existence. Most men fear this confrontation because they have spent years building a persona to hide from their own emptiness. How does the silence activate the sixth sense? The recursive truth of intellect versus intuition is that the intellect is a finite tool of logic. It works only with what is already known. It is the library, but it is not the author. Intuition, or the sixth sense, is the direct conduit to infinite intelligence. It does not reason, it knows. However, this signal is incredibly subtle. Think of it as a broadcast from the stars. If you are standing in a thunderstorm of activity, you will never hear the transmission. Why must we enter the council? Because your mind is a broadcasting station that has forgotten how to be a receiving station. You are so busy outputting your stress and your plans that you never stop to download the strategy. How do we facilitate this? By creating the muddy glass effect. When you are rushing, the water of your mind is agitated, the mud is suspended, and you cannot see the bottom. By sitting in stillness, you let the sediment of your daily anxieties settle. As the mud falls, the water becomes crystal clear. It is in this clarity that the million-dollar idea, the solution to the impossible conflict, or the sudden, piercing insight into your own character manifests. You are not thinking in the sacred council. You are listening. You are allowing the universal intelligence which is already present within you to bypass the gatekeepers of your own busy, frantic, and limited logic. The silence is not an escape from reality. It is the only way to tap into the fundamental reality that sustains all things. In the waning days of the Great Enlightenment, there lived a legendary strategist named Vane. Vane was not a man of books, but a man of maps. He was tasked by the emperor to navigate the empire through a period of systemic collapse. While his rivals spent their days in frantic debate, shouting over one another in the war room, and their nights poring over ledgers until their eyes bled, Vane did something that the courtiers found absurd. Every morning, at the first hint of violet in the sky, Vane would vanish. He would walk to a remote stone pavilion overlooking the sea, a place where the wind howled and the waves smashed against the jagged cliffs. He would sit, cross-legged, on the cold granite floor. For 40 minutes, he did not speak. He did not write. He did not eat. He simply stared into the horizon. His rivals mocked him. They said he was losing his mind, that he had abandoned his duties, and that the empire would surely fall while its lead strategist sat watching the gulls. One afternoon, during a critical crisis, a border invasion, combined with a failing treasury, the war room fell into chaos. The maps were torn, the advisors were arguing, and the emperor was paralyzed by conflicting reports. The door opened, and Vane stepped in. He had not slept in days, yet his eyes were as still and clear as a winter morning. He walked to the central map, placed a single finger on a single, obscure valley, and whispered, "Move the legions here." The advisors gasped. "That is the most vulnerable position," they cried. "You are insane." Vane did not argue. He simply stood there, radiating an unnatural, terrifying calm. "The enemy is coming through the pass, not the valley," he said. "They are exhausted and divided. If we strike now, the campaign ends tonight." The legions were moved. The victory was total and effortless. Later, the emperor asked Vane how he had calculated the move. Vane replied, "I did not calculate, sire. In the silence of the pavilion, I stopped being the man who needed to win, and I started being the observer of the truth. When you quiet the fear of losing, the victory reveals itself." Vane had found the strategy in the silence, while everyone else was drowning in the noise. The power of the sacred council is now yours to command. You have the ability to turn off the world and listen to the pulse of the infinite. It is a terrifying prospect to the weak, but it is the oxygen of the strong. Your mission for today: you are to dedicate exactly 10 minutes to the council immediately following your physical activation. You will find a place where the world cannot reach you, a chair, a corner, a sanctuary. You will sit with dignity, spine erect, eyes closed. You will not try to empty your mind, for that is a fool's errand. You will simply watch the thoughts as they arrive, like guests at a party, and let them leave without inviting them to stay. You will pose one singular question to the silence. What is the most important movement I must make today to fulfill my purpose? Then you will wait. Do not analyze. Do not judge. When the intuitive nudge, an image, a word, or a feeling of direction arrives, you will seize it. That is your marching order. But you have the body of a warrior and the listening ear of a strategist. The invisible is becoming visible, but the thoughts, once caught in the silence, are like morning mist. They will evaporate if you do not pin them to the earth. You have the inspiration. Now, you must learn the art of the anchor. We have spoken of silence, but we must now discuss the pen. In our next chapter, Crystallizing the Ethereal, we will teach you how to turn your fleeting insights into solid, unchangeable law. The ink is ready. Are you prepared to record your own history? The process of manifestation continues. Consider the nature of a dream. In the depth of the night, it is a vivid, breathtaking architecture of possibilities. A landscape of colors, sounds, and profound revelations that seem to hold the very secret to your soul's unfolding. Yet, as the first light of dawn bleeds across the horizon, the dream begins to dissolve. It slips through the fingers of the waking mind like fine, dry sand, leaving only a haunting, nebulous trace of what once was. This is the tragedy of the unrecorded thought. We live in a world where millions of moments of genius, flashes of divine insight, and blueprints for empires are born in the sanctuary of the mind, only to be strangled by the humidity of the coming day. There is a haunting paradox in the human condition. The mind is the most sophisticated instrument of creation in the known universe, yet it is a terrible vessel for storage. It is designed to process, to synthesize, and to leap across dimensions of logic, but it is not designed to hoard the past. When you rely upon your memory to guard the treasures of your inspiration, you are building your legacy upon a foundation of mist. Observe the common man. He believes he is a master of his own ideas, yet he spends his life chasing shadows, lamenting the great ideas he has forgotten, and wondering why his life feels like a circular path rather than an ascending spiral. He treats his thoughts as transient visitors, unaware that unless he provides them with a physical home, a vessel of ink and fiber, they will depart, leaving him a stranger to his own potential. Why is the act of writing the necessary bridge between the spiritual aspiration and the material reality? To understand this, we must deconstruct the physics of manifestation. Why does the thought remain a ghost until it is written? A thought exists only in the realm of vibration. It is an electrical impulse dancing across a web of neurons, transient and unstable. To crystallize a thought is to move it from the non-physical realm into the physical realm. The act of writing is, in the most literal sense, an act of creation. You are forcing the abstract to take on a concrete form. When you put pen to paper, you are imposing order upon the chaos of your consciousness. You are telling the universe, this is no longer a fleeting possibility. This is now a permanent record. How does writing engage the reticular activating system, RAS? The RAS is the brain's filter, the silent sentinel that decides what information from the environment is relevant to your survival and success. If you keep your goals in your head, The RAS treats them as background noise, no different from the hum of the refrigerator or the sound of the wind. However, when you write your goals by hand, you are activating a multisensory feedback loop. You are seeing the goal, feeling the pressure of the pen, and witnessing the movement of the hand. Why is this process recursive? Because writing forces you to be precise. You cannot write a vague sense of success. You must define the parameters. In the act of definition, you strip away the fear and the ambiguity. How does this lead to mastery? Once the goal is written, it becomes a permanent reference point. It stops being a wish and becomes a law. Your brain, now programmed by the written decree, begins to scan the environment for opportunities that align with that law. You are no longer drifting. You are navigating. You have offloaded the burden of memory and replaced it with the authority of a manifesto. The written word is the anchor that holds your ship in the harbor of your purpose, preventing the tides of distraction from carrying you into the abyss of the mundane. The power of the written word is now within your grasp. You are the cartographer of your own life, and the pages before you are the raw earth waiting for the garden to be mapped. Your mission for today: you are to dedicate 10 minutes of your morning to the crystallization ritual. You will procure a dedicated journal, a vessel of significance. In this journal, you will write 3 things with absolute, unwavering clarity. Your definite chief aim, stated as a present tense reality. The gratitude ledger. List 3 things you are grateful for, forcing your mind to hunt for the evidence of your prosperity. The cache emptying. Pour out every lingering fear, every pending task, and every buzzing distraction that plagues your mind. By externalizing these, you kill their power to haunt you. Once the ink is dry, you close the book. You have successfully anchored your intent. You are now free to walk into the day, not as a man carrying the weight of his own thoughts, but as a man who knows exactly where he is going. But you have prepared the vessel, ignited the fire, listened to the silence, and anchored the truth in ink. You are now standing on the precipice of total alignment. Yet, even the best prepared warrior, when standing on the field of battle, must know how to choose the one target that decides the war. You have the ammunition, but do you have the aim? In our next chapter, The Power of the Single Target, we will teach you how to focus your entire life's energy into one blinding point of intensity. The battle is waiting. Are you ready to find the hinge of your destiny? The path to dominance continues. The power of the written word is now within your grasp. You are the cartographer of your own life, and the pages before you are the raw earth waiting for the garden to be mapped. Your mission for today: you are to dedicate 10 minutes of your morning to the crystallization ritual. You will procure a dedicated journal, a vessel of significance. In this journal, you will write 3 things with absolute, unwavering clarity. Your definite chief aim, stated as a present tense reality. The gratitude ledger. List 3 things you are grateful for, forcing your mind to hunt for the evidence of your prosperity. The cache emptying. Pour out every lingering fear, every pending task, and every buzzing distraction that plagues your mind. By externalizing these, you kill their power to haunt you. Once the ink is dry, you close the book. You have successfully anchored your intent. You are now free to walk into the day, not as a man carrying the weight of his own thoughts, but as a man who knows exactly where he is going. But you have prepared the vessel, ignited the fire, listened to the silence, and anchored the truth in ink. You are now standing on the precipice of total alignment. Yet, even the best prepared warrior, when standing on the field of battle, must know how to choose the one target that decides the war. You have the ammunition, but do you have the aim? In our next chapter, The Power of the Single Target, we will teach you how to focus your entire life's energy into one blinding point of intensity. The battle is waiting. Are you ready to find the hinge of your destiny? The path to dominance continues. Observe, if you will, a vast field under the blistering heat of a high summer noon. In the center of this expanse lies a pile of dry, brittle leaves, the potential fuel for a transformative fire. Beside this pile stands a man holding a magnifying glass. He is frantic. He moves the glass with nervous, sweeping gestures, catching the sunlight for a fraction of a second here and a fraction of a second there. He is busy. He is sweating. He is moving with the desperate energy of one who believes that speed equals impact. Yet, the pile of leaves remains cold, inert, and lifeless. The sunlight passes through the glass, but it never finds a home. Now, consider the paradox of the modern existence. Millions of men and women live their entire lives in this state of frantic motion. They pride themselves on their multitasking, their crowded calendars, and their ability to juggle a dozen responsibilities at once. They are the masters of the sweeping gesture, constantly shifting their focus to ensure that no single task is ever left untended. They are exhausted, yet they have produced no heat. They have moved 1,000 miles in 1,000 different directions, yet they remain tethered to the same ground. There is a silent, devastating tragedy here. It is the tragedy of the diffuse light. The sun is not the problem. The atmosphere is not the problem. The leaves are not the problem. The failure lies in the lack of focus. To achieve anything of lasting significance, one must move from the state of the diffuse to the state of the concentrated. One must stop dancing and start burning. The tragedy of the common man is not that he lacks the fire, but that he has never learned to hold the magnifying glass steady. Why is the multitasker the most significant casualty of the modern age? To dissect this, we must apply the recursive method to the mechanics of achievement. Why does the brain perceive busyness as a proxy for progress? The human brain is a creature of comfort, and the ego is a creature of vanity. The ego thrives on the feeling of importance that comes with a full schedule. When you are busy, you feel indispensable. You feel like a person of substance because you are doing so much. This is a survival mechanism. It is the mind's way of ensuring it has a place in the tribe. However, this is a profound psychological deception. Busyness is the defensive posture of the weak. It is a way to avoid the terrifying work of identifying what truly matters. If you are busy, you have an excuse for why you haven't yet achieved your greatness. How does the magnifying glass principle override the fatigue of existence? The principle of the single target is the application of leverage. You have a finite amount of energy each day, a singular battery of willpower. When you dissipate this energy, you are like a river that has been dammed into 1,000 tiny trickles. You lack the force to turn a wheel. But when you channel that entire river into one massive, controlled waterfall, you possess the power to move mountains. Why is the one thing a threat to the ego? Because choosing one thing requires the courage to say no to 1,000 other things. It requires the acceptance that you cannot be all things to all people. To focus is to exclude, and the ego hates to exclude. How do we execute this recursion? We ask, what is the single action that, if completed, makes all other actions either easier or entirely unnecessary? This is the hinge of the battle. By identifying this hinge, you are no longer operating from a position of reaction. You are operating from a position of strategic dominance. You are not waiting for the world to present you with tasks. You are selecting the task that alters the landscape of your life. This is the difference between the laborer who digs a hole with a spoon and the master who clears a path with a backhoe. The master understands that efficiency is doing things right, but effectiveness is doing the right thing. In the era of the great ironclads, there served a captain named Holloway, known throughout the seven seas for his impossible efficiency. During a fierce naval blockade, Holloway's ship was outnumbered and outgunned by an enemy fleet that swarmed his position like hornets. His crew was panicked. They wanted to fire all their cannons at once, to throw everything they had at every ship in the vicinity, hoping to strike a glancing blow. Holloway stood on the bridge, his binoculars fixed on the lead flagship. He saw that the enemy was held together by a single, fragile tactical formation, a chain of command that relied entirely on the flagship's signaling. "Hold your fire!" he commanded, his voice a low tremor against the thunder of the cannons. "Do not fire at the swarm. Aim only for the flagship's rudder." The crew was bewildered. To ignore the ships surrounding them seemed like suicide. But Holloway remained unmoved. He waited until the moment was perfect, until the wind and the swell aligned with his ship's drift. Fire. A single, massive volley tore through the smoke and struck the flagship's stern with surgical precision. The flagship lost its ability to maneuver and began to spin, crashing into its own allies. The chain of command collapsed in an instant. Within minutes, the entire swarm of enemy ships was in disarray, fleeing the blockade as they collided with one another in the confusion. Holloway had not fought 100 ships, he had fought one target. By breaking the hinge, he had broken the battle. He did not need to be stronger, he only needed to be more focused. You have witnessed the power of the hinge. You have seen that a singular, precise strike carries more weight than 1,000 disorganized blows. It is time for you to become the Holloway of your own life. Your mission for today: you are to perform a surgical extraction on your to-do list. Before you start your day, look at your list of obligations. You will perform a ruthless cull. You will cross out every task that is merely busy work. You will identify the one thing, the hinge, that, if completed, will change the trajectory of your day. You will not check your email first. You will not engage in the social theater of the morning. You will take that one target and strike it with the totality of your concentration. You will treat this target as if your entire destiny depends upon it because, in truth, it does. You will not stop until the hinge is broken. But you have the body of a warrior, the mind of a strategist, the tongue of a king, and the focus of a captain. You are almost at the threshold of the complete transformation. Yet, all these tools are but hollow shells if they are not possessed by a singular, unshakable consciousness. You have the skills. Do you have the identity? In our final and most profound chapter, The Coronation of Identity, we will teach you how to cement this new version of yourself, ensuring that you do not drift back into the old habits of the past. The throne is waiting. Are you ready to crown yourself the master of your own soul? The journey reaches its zenith. Imagine, if you will, an ancient theater at the edge of the world, where the curtains are made of starlight and the stage is the cold, unyielding earth. The audience is the vast, silent expanse of time itself. Every morning, as the sun begins to bleed its color into the eastern sky, a single figure steps out from the wings onto this stage. The lights of the world snap into focus, blinding and expectant. The figure stands there, trembling slightly in the cool air of dawn, wearing the ragged, comfortable cloak of their yesterday. It is a garment stitched together with the threads of past mistakes, the patches of unfulfilled promises, and the heavy, fraying hem of who I used to be. Here is the exquisite, agonizing paradox of the morning. You are both the actor and the director, yet you almost always choose to walk onto the stage wearing the costume of your previous performance. You step into the role of the struggling employee, the overwhelmed parent, or the victim of circumstance, simply because the costume is familiar and the script is already memorized. You look into the mirror and you see the ghost of your past, and so you act accordingly. You walk with the slump of your past failures. You speak with the hesitancy of your past doubts. You are a king or queen in potential, but you have chosen to play the part of a beggar in habit. The morning is not merely a segment of time. It is the coronation ceremony, where you choose which crown you will wear for the day. Will you don the heavy, leaden circlet of your history, or will you seize the radiant, golden diadem of your destiny? Why do human beings cling so desperately to an identity that no longer serves them? To understand this, we must deconstruct the psychology of the self through the lens of recursive evolution. Why does the psyche fear the void of a new identity? The brain is a continuity engine. It craves the comfort of a consistent story. To change who you are is to kill the person you were, and the brain, in its primitive wisdom, fears the death of the I it has spent years constructing. Even if that I is miserable, it is known. The unknown, the future self, is perceived by the lower mind as a threat. The ego would rather remain a prisoner in a familiar dungeon than step out into the terrifying freedom of the open road. How does the decision of identity rewrite the biological code? Identity is the thermostat of the human experience. You do not get what you want in life. You get what you are. If your internal setting is tuned to failure, you will sabotage every opportunity that drifts into your orbit to ensure you return to that baseline. The recursive method here is to stop asking, "What do I need to do?" and start asking, "Who must I be?" Why is this the master key? Because action is merely a symptom of identity. If you identify as a person of discipline, you do not try to exercise. You exercise because that is what a person of discipline does. If you identify as a master of your time, you do not struggle to be punctual. You are punctual because it is the natural expression of your character. How do we execute this shift? By separating the self from the feeling. Your feelings are merely the weather, the passing clouds of biochemistry, fear, and fatigue. Your identity is the mountain. The mountain does not shift because of a storm. When you wake up, you must perform the act of identity grafting. You consciously discard the old rags of the previous day's narrative and put on the persona of the version of you that has already achieved your objective. This is not delusion, it is alignment. You are aligning your current vibration with your future reality. You are, in effect, acting as if until the world recognizes the role you have claimed, and the role itself becomes the reality of your blood and bone. In the dusty, sun-drenched archives of a forgotten empire, there was a story told of a peasant named Mizar, who worked the salt mines. Mizar was a man of stunted stature and bent back, broken by the labor of his station. He lived in the shadow of the great palace, where the emperor, a man of legendary wisdom and iron will, governed the realm. One day, the emperor fell ill, and the crown prince was absent, lost in the wars at the border. The advisors were in a panic. The empire was on the brink of collapse, and the throne sat empty, a terrifying symbol of vulnerability. Mizar, who had spent his life observing the emperor from the edge of the palace walls, made a decision. He entered the royal chambers, stripped off his salt-stained tunics, and donned the heavy golden robes of the sovereign. He did not ask for permission. He did not seek approval. He simply sat upon the throne. When the advisors burst in, they expected to see a fraud. They expected to see a peasant playing a game. But they stopped in their tracks. Mizar did not cower. He did not beg. He stood with the height of a giant. He spoke with the resonant, unwavering authority of a ruler who had governed for decades. He looked at the council and said, "The prince is away, but the empire must endure. If you seek a leader, you have found one. If you seek a peasant, you are looking at the wrong room." For 40 days, Mizar governed. He made decisions of such profound courage and foresight that the empire flourished. He was not acting. He had become the sovereign. When the prince finally returned, he found his kingdom stronger than when he left. Mizar simply returned the robes and walked out into the fields, back to his salt, with a smile of peace. He had proven the ancient truth. The throne does not make the king. The king makes the throne. He had spent his life being a peasant, but in a single moment of decision, he chose a different identity, and the world had no choice but to treat him accordingly. You have heard the tale of the peasant who became the king, not by birth, but by the sheer, unyielding force of his chosen identity. The robes of the sovereign are waiting for you, and they are woven from the same fabric as your own resolve. Your mission for today: the moment you wake up tomorrow, before your feet hit the floor, you will perform the coronation. You will lie still and visualize your future self, the person who has already conquered your current obstacles. You will see them standing, walking, and speaking with the authority of a master. You will ask yourself, what is the standard of this person? How do they handle the morning? What is their posture? You will consciously step into their skin. You will walk through your morning ritual, not as a chore, but as the ceremonial preparation of a royal. Every cold shower, every written goal, and every moment of silence is a coronation ritual. You are not doing these things. You are being the master. If you fail to act like the king, you are simply choosing to remain the peasant. If you are ready to discard the rags of your history and claim the throne of your own consciousness, seal your oath. Click the like button and subscribe to our Circle of Sovereigns. By doing so, you are signaling to the universe that your identity is no longer for sale to the world, but is guarded by your own sovereign will. But you have crowned yourself. You have fortified your mind, body, and spirit. You have the map, the aim, and the character of a giant. Yet even the most powerful king must understand that their reign is not just for their own glory. It is a legacy meant to stand the test of time. In our final and concluding chapter, The Master's Legacy, we will synthesize everything we have built into the ultimate blueprint for a life that echoes into eternity. We have mastered the morning. Now, we shall master the mark you leave upon the earth. The final gate stands before you. Are you ready to see what remains when the sun sets on your masterpiece? The end is the beginning. Consider the silence of a great cathedral, long abandoned by its architects, yet still holding the resonance of their devotion within its soaring stone arches. Centuries pass, civilizations rise and crumble into the dust of historical footnotes, but the structure remains, a testament to the fact that someone once possessed the vision to build for an era they would never inhabit. This is the ultimate paradox of the human experience. Our lives are but a fleeting vapor in the infinite expanse of time, a mere heartbeat in the rhythm of the cosmos. Yet, within that heartbeat, we hold the capacity to craft an echo that can outlast the very stars. Observe the common man as he wanders through his days. He moves with the frantic, short-sighted urgency of a creature who believes that his only reality is the immediate satisfaction of his own appetites. He builds for the hour. He invests in the trivial. He constructs his identity upon the shifting sands of popular opinion and fleeting comfort. And yet, look at the few, the rare, the relentless, the masters of their own sovereignty. They move with the calm, terrifying patience of those who know that they are not merely living a day, but weaving a tapestry. They understand that every morning they conquer, every intent they crystallize, and every identity they forge is not for the sake of the present comfort, but for the sake of the legacy that will survive them. The sunset is not the end of the work. It is the final stroke upon the canvas of the day, and when the light fails, the work stands as the only witness to the soul that performed it. Why does the pursuit of legacy provide the ultimate immunity against the drift toward mediocrity? To answer this, we must deconstruct the psychology of transcendence. Why does the concept of legacy act as a gravitational anchor? The drifter lives in a state of entropy. He is constantly breaking down, reacting to the pressures of the environment, and losing his internal order. He lives for the now, and because the now is chaotic, he becomes chaotic. The master, however, operates under the principle of negentropy. By orienting his life toward a legacy, he creates an internal order that resists the decay of the world. He is no longer fighting the battles of the morning just to survive the day. He is fighting them to secure the integrity of his entire life's work. How does this recursive shift in perspective redefine the nature of success? The why of our existence is often obscured by the how of our daily survival. When you ask yourself, will this action matter in 100 years? You are not being morbid. You are being strategic. You are filtering the noise of the marketplace through the sieve of eternity. How do we execute this shift in the morning ritual? By viewing the miniature lifetime. If the morning is your birth and the night is your passing, then the way you live your day is the autobiography you write for the world to read. Why is this the ultimate shield? Because you cannot be defeated by the temporary setbacks of the afternoon when you are committed to the architecture of your life. A man who is building a monument does not stop his work because it starts to rain. He knows that the rain is a fleeting condition, while the monument is the final, objective reality. By aligning your morning, your thoughts, your body, and your identity toward the creation of a legacy, you remove the possibility of failure. You have redefined success not as the accumulation of transient wealth, but as the consistent expression of an unshakable character. You are no longer chasing the wind. You are becoming the mountain upon which the world rests. In a valley nestled between towering, jagged peaks, there lived an aging stonecutter named Bram. Bram had spent 50 years in the sun, his hands calloused and gnarled, his face a map of the harsh winds he had endured. While other villagers spent their youth pursuing the vanity of fame or the accumulation of transient goods, Bram spent his life doing one thing. He was carving a colossal, intricate bridge across a treacherous, bottomless chasm that separated his village from the fertile lands beyond. The bridge was not just wood and stone. It was an impossible, soaring masterpiece of architecture. People would walk by and laugh, calling him a fool. "You will never see the other side, Bram," they would shout. "Why spend your life on a dream you will never walk across?" Bram would simply smile, his chisel never pausing. "I am not building this for my feet," he would reply. "I am building it for the generations who are not yet born. I am not a stonecutter. I am a bridge. My legacy is the path that others will take when I am gone." Years later, when Bram passed, the bridge was finished. It stood as a silent, majestic sentinel over the chasm. The villagers who had mocked him were long forgotten. Their lives and their goods turned to dust. But the children of the valley, and their children's children, walked across Bram's bridge every day. They carried the grain, they shared the trade, and they lived in prosperity, because a man they never knew had decided that his life was not his own, it was a foundation. Bram had achieved the ultimate mastery. He had ensured that his existence was not a flicker, but a permanent, unshakable contribution to the evolution of his people. He had mastered the morning by building a future he would never inhabit. You have the tools, you have the mind, you have the fire, but the final piece is the perspective of the architect who builds for eternity. You are not here to pay bills and die. You are here to build a bridge across the chasm of your own existence. Your mission for today. As you stand in the quiet of your morning, look beyond the tasks of the day. Ask yourself, what is the bridge I am building? Whether it is the culture of your home, the influence you have in your marketplace, or the standard of excellence you set for those who follow you, you must see the long arc of your impact. Rise today with the weight of that responsibility. Let every decision, every word, and every action be a stone you lay for the future. Do not settle for the easy, the temporary, or the small. You are a successor to the greats who came before, and a forefather to the giants who will come after. Act accordingly. The bridge is built. The chasm is crossed. You have walked through the fire, spoken your truth into the ether, and claimed the throne of your identity. You have learned that the morning is the rudder, the mind is the garden, and the soul is the architect. You are no longer the passenger of your fate. You are the navigator, the commander, and the creator of all you survey. The path forward is no longer obscured. It is etched into the very fabric of your daily discipline. You hold the master key. The door is wide open. Go forth, dominate the darkness, and light the way for the world. Your life is the masterpiece now. Live it.